Good morning, dear students. Welcome back to our online class. Today we are going to start with a new chapter of the Civics, Chapter 3, Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. In this chapter, we will be going to learn about the appointment of the Prime Minister, formation of the Council of Ministers, tenure, functions, like policy making, administrative, legislative, financial functions, emergency functions, and the position and powers of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers and Cabinet. Okay, so the what we all know that Prime Minister is actually, according to the Constitution of India, it provides for a Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister as the to aid and advise the President. Okay, so Prime Minister is the head of the Council of Ministers. Okay, the members of the Council of Ministers, which actually is recommended by the Indian Constitution according to Article 75. Okay, so according to Article 75 says that the Indian Constitution, that the Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President and the other ministers shall be appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. Okay, so we have the Council of Ministers under the Prime Minister's head, and all these Council of Ministers are actually elected or selected with the Prime Minister's advice. Okay, so the Prime Minister decides that who all members should be there in my Council of Ministers, because this Council of Ministers plus the Prime Minister forms the ruling government. Okay, so the President may require the Council of Ministers to reconsider their advice, but he shall act in accordance with the advice tendered after such reconsideration. Okay, and this advice he takes from the Prime Minister. And who will be appointing, or how is the Prime Minister elected? We know that Prime Minister election, or the process of election of the Prime Minister, is in a direct manner. It's not like the election of the President. Okay, so the election of the President is in indirect manner, whereas the election of the Prime Minister is in direct manner. It's a common election, or we call it as a general election. And we know that after every 5 years there will be the general election for the Prime Ministership all over the country. Okay, the Prime Minister is given the oath and appointed by the President itself, and the President cannot act arbitrarily in his appointment. According to the convention, the President invites the leader of the majority party or the group in the Lok Sabha to form the government. Okay, now after the general elections are conducted, the which we have myriads of political parties in our country. Some are major parties, some are minor parties, some are coalition parties. Okay, 2 or 3 parties combined together and they form one party. Okay, so coalition party. So we have this different kinds of parties here, and the members of the majority party or the group elect their leader to be appointed as a Prime Minister. Okay, now the President then appoints him as a Prime Minister when there will be no single party secures an absolute majority in the Lok Sabha. The President will be having the same option in the appointment of the Prime Minister. Okay, now suppose we have many different parties, and in the previous election we have seen that the Bharatiya Janata Party, that is BJP, has got the maximum votes. Okay, so it has become the majority party in the Lok Sabha, and among the majority party, all the members of the Lok Sabha, from the members of the Lok Sabha who belong to this majority party, from there one person will be elected. Okay, and nominated, and that will be done by the members of the Lok Sabha there, and that will be the president finally giving the consent, and that will be the prime minister. Now after the declaration of the prime minister, it is the prime minister who will be advising the members of his council, because his council is the ruling government, going to become the ruling government. So prime minister will be advising the names of the eligible persons in different fields of their cabinet to become the council of ministers, and president will be giving the consent and declaring those members as the council of ministers. Okay, normally only the members of the parliament are appointed as the ministers, and in case a non-member is appointed as a minister, he must be elected or nominated by the parliament within 6 months from the date of his appointment. Okay, so we know normally in the council of ministers, there includes the members of the parliament. Now if any person in the election, in the general election, has won with the maximum majority, and he is not the member of the parliament, then that person can be appointed um, appointed or nominated. He should be nominated to the parliament within the 6 months of time from the date of his appointment. Now failing this, he will have to resign from the post of the minister, and if that person is not following this 6 months period, then that means he has to resign from the post of being a minister. Okay, now before 1979, the constitution does not actually coined this term or refer to this word cabinet. Okay, if you simply in English, if we simply call cabinet, means it is a box, a closed box, okay, that you call it as a cabinet. Now it is referred only to the, now in history it takes the meaning of cabinet is something that is kept inside a closed one. Okay, here it is sense that a group, okay, a formation in that sense. So cabinet is referred only to the council of ministers in 1979, and according to the 44th amendment act provides that the president shall not issue a proclamation of national emergency unless the members of the union cabinet, that is the prime minister, and the ministers of the cabinet, that is the council of ministers, has been communicated to him in writing. So when we have discussed about the powers of the president, functions of the president, we have seen that when we discussed about this national emergency power of the president, we have already discussed this, that the president has to get the consent from the cabinet, that is cabinet means prime minister plus council of ministers equals to cabinet. Okay, so the president has to get the consent in writing from all these members, then only he is having that right to proclaim the national emergency policies or decisions, whatever it is. Okay, so after this, the distinction between the cabinet and the council of ministers has become very, very clear. Okay, now when we talk about the cabinet, we will be talking about the cabinet ministers. Now who are these cabinet ministers? They are the most important members of the council of ministers. They hold very important designations, okay, or important portfolios, we call it, like home minister, then finance minister, external affairs minister, railway minister, okay, communication and technology minister. So different ministers under different cabinets, portfolios or designations, they are being named. Okay, now so a cabinet minister of more than one ministry is in charge of a ministry, and sometimes he can be in charge of more than one ministry. For example, the agricultural minister can also be having the responsibility of the water and irrigation. Okay, so that are associated. Like for example, the communication minister is also associated with the culture and arts and tradition of the country. Okay, or like the railway minister is also associated with the financial minister or like that. Okay, so sometimes the responsibilities are clubbed and given to this minister or the ministry. Now, when we call about the cabinet minister having clubbed with the two or more ministries, it doesn't mean that he is the only one who is running everywhere and looking after all the activities from the central government to the village of the nook and corner of the country. No, it is not like that. He will be assigned many people, subordinates working under him, and the duties are discharged to the various people in various channels. Okay, and this is how the cabinet minister of his ministry will be working. So now the defense minister, home minister, defense minister, we know that defense is directly absorbed by the president. Then financial minister is in responsible of giving the income and expense and income of the country, and also to make the annual budgets. Okay, this is all under the responsibility of the financial ministry. Okay, the home minister will be again looking after all the internal matters of the country, and external affairs minister will be dealing with the foreign relationships of our country with the other foreign countries, in the matters of trade, culture, in the matters of education, in the matters of other facilities, etc. Okay, so in the matters of related to the safety of the country, etc. So wherever we see that the foreign external of in every country we have an Indian ambassador who will be representing the country. Besides, we have the minister who will be taking care of those Indians who are residing in different parts of the world. Okay, and the external affairs minister is responsible to keep good and friendly relationships with the other countries regarding these matters. Okay, now a cabinet minister is also in charge of more than one ministries, we have seen, and only cabinet minister have the right to attend the meetings of the cabinet. Now, during this pandemic time, we have seen that the prime minister Narendra Modi has called upon for a cabinet meeting regarding the discussions related to the coming situation, seriousness of the coming situations, and encouraging more and more people to take vaccination and to reach vaccination for the children under the age of 15 to 18, and so many things like regarding the reduction night curfews, regarding the stopping of the traveling facilities cut down into 50%, people gathering cut down into 50%. Now all these decisions were actually taken by the cabinet ministers, in the presence of the cabinet ministers and the prime minister. Okay, so last year during the very critical pandemic situation, we have seen that they had even virtual meetings through the Google Meet or Zoom link. Okay, and we have seen that how they have but still they managed to gather the meeting. That means that it doesn't mean that it's only the prime minister who is sitting and deciding all the things. His team, that is the cabinet ministers, are also involved, and it is compulsory that every cabinet minister has to be present during the time of the cabinet meeting. Okay, and they together determine the policy and program of the government. So this all the policies and programs, now we know they all belong to same political party, so obviously their ideas and their methodology of working and their intentions will be almost the same. Okay, so that shows that the members of the cabinet or the council of ministers have a kind of unity of their own rule to make their own ruling government a successful one. Okay, then we have the ministers of the state. Now, who are these ministers of the state? They are the second category of the ministers. So you have to keep in mind the first category of the ministers are the cabinet ministers. Okay, and the second category is the ministers of the state. Now, they may or may not hold an independent charge or any portfolio. Now, the ministers of the state means the MPs. They might not be having independent charge or designation. The prime minister may or may not consult, and it is not necessary that for every decision the prime minister should consult the ministers of the state, but the prime minister must consult the cabinet ministers. Okay, I hope you got the difference. Then they do not participate, and these ministers of state are not even allowed to participate in the cabinet meetings. Okay, and they may be invited to attend meetings when matters concerning their departments are being considered. Now suppose if the matter is health, it's a health issue, right? Pandemic is a great health issue, then the health minister is being with the under the recommendation of the health minister, the cabinet minister of the state related to the health will be called of the different states or different places. Okay, and they will be giving the necessary guidance and the instructions, okay, regarding the taking care of the pandemic, regarding the medicines, drugs, and equipments to be provided to the hospitals. Okay, so all those things. So in such cases, the minister of state will be taking part. Otherwise, in regular cabinet meetings, no minister of state will be participating in that. Okay, now below this comes to the third category of the ministers, that are deputy ministers. Okay, now who are these deputy ministers? These are the ministers, those who assist the cabinet ministers and the council of the ministers. Okay, so they are junior ministers and are placed under the senior ministers whom they have to assist. Okay, now those people who are working under them are actually the deputy ministers. So they will be assigned with various responsibilities, and again below these deputy ministers also there might be other responsible people who will be submitted or who will be assigned to give or channelize the different works. Okay, and complete the task in as quickly as possible, so that from every nook and corner the methodology, the policies introduced, the mechanisms, the equipments, everything should be reached. Okay, now they take no part there. So these deputy ministers also do not take part in any of the cabinet meeting. Okay, so you have to keep in mind the three categories of the ministers. One is cabinet minister, the most important. Second is the ministers of the state, and the third is the deputy ministers. And cabinet ministers are prime minister plus the council of ministers together form the cabinet minister, and different cabinet ministers are entrusted with different portfolios, and one more than one portfolios can be entrusted in one cabinet ministry, and it is compulsory that the cabinet ministers have to attend the meetings whenever they are asked for. Okay, then comes the ministers of the state. They are second in the position, and they may not be called for the cabinet meetings, and they may not be given particular portfolio to take care of. But if the under the recommendation of the any particular department of the cabinet minister, if the minister of state is asked to summon, then they are allowed to join the meeting, but this happens very rarely. Okay, then below this comes a deputy minister. So learn all these three different types of ministers properly and learn the differences also. Okay, so now the council of ministers, when we talk about them, it actually comprises the prime minister and a number of other ministers appointed by the president on the advice of the prime minister. That means all, now don't get confused with the term cabinet ministers and council of ministers or members of the cabinet. Okay, when we talk about the members of the cabinet, that means besides prime minister, who are all there in the cabinet are the members of the cabinet, and the very same members of the cabinet are called as a council of ministers. Okay, so now prime minister plus all these council of ministers together we call it as a cabinet. Okay, I hope that you will not get confused with these terms and you understood it very clearly. Okay, so we'll continue the rest of the topic in the coming video. So watch the video along with the textbook, and if you have any queries, please let me know. Till then, take care. Bye.